You're listening to the Labor Notes podcast, the weekly show from Labor Notes on rank and file news and organizing tactics. I'm pod co-host Natascha Elena Uhlmann, a staff writer at Labor Notes.
And I'm co-host Danielle Smith, and an organizer at Labor Notes.
In last week's episode, we took a kind of sobering look at the GOP budget bill, the big, ugly bill that the Republican-controlled Congress passed this month, which will cut more than $1 trillion from Medicaid and billions of dollars in funding for the SNAP Food Assistance Program, and will provide $170 billion in funding for the immigration crackdown. These numbers are a lot to digest, especially the extent to which the government is willing to invest in targeting immigrants and their families at the expense of working people. And it might feel like there aren't a lot of great options for dealing with it other than either lying low and hoping it blows over or physically trying to stop an ICE vehicle with your body like David Huerta did. That's the president of SEIU California and SEIU United Service Workers West, who ICE arrested when he was trying to defend workers during a raid last month in LA.
But even when the administration's moves feel overwhelming and things seem bleak, there are tangible things we can do that many union members are already doing to fight back and defend immigrants from an apparatus that can be deployed against any and all of us in the working class. That's what we want to talk about this week. Natascha, you've been covering a lot of these actions by union members over the last several months, and you now have a piece with Sarah Lazare at Workday Magazine. That's a collaboration with them called Fight ICE, Build the Union. Folks listening in can read the piece at labornotes.org and on workdaymagazine.org. Natascha, you and Sarah spoke to several union leaders and members for this piece. What are their priorities right now?
A lot of the members we spoke to are seeing this as an existential struggle for labor, and they're in action mode. They're organizing rallies, knocking doors in their neighborhoods, and they're working with other community organizations to be able to respond to the raids. They see the billionaire class and their right-wing mouthpieces in politics cynically using immigration as a wedge issue to divide their coworkers. And a lot of workers are recognizing that the real threats, what keeps their wages down and jobs precarious, comes not from immigrants, but the projects the billionaires have undertaken for decades. Offshoring, automation, union busting, breaking up the workforce with independent contractors. So they know when they hear the boss or a billionaire say that immigrants are taking the jobs of American workers, that is a tactic of misdirection and division. And the workers who are organizing on their shop floors also see that not taking up these fights now to defend immigrant workers will ultimately only weaken their own collective power. Here's how Siti, a Starbucks barista protesting outside the Central Louisiana ICE Processing Center, put it. We cannot wait for things to be happening to us to start fighting, because when we wait for that level, then we're left with no one to fight with, end quote.
Honestly, that shows not just solidarity, but a lot of foresight and vision, which we really need to cultivate as organizers. How are union members bringing their coworkers together on this issue? We tend to hear a lot about how union members in the working class are divided on immigration, and that many members even support these deportations.
Yeah, that's true, but it seems like there are some real openings right now to organize around this. Trump's own campaign had focused on targeting quote-unquote dangerous criminals. But right now, people are seeing that it's actually their own coworkers, their own loved ones, their neighbors, the people who run their community institutions, and anyone who dares to stand up for them. These are the people being terrorized and brutalized by ICE. And some unions have been organizing to defend workers in their communities more broadly, regardless of whether they're union members. ICE has been targeting even legal permanent residents who have minor traffic violations or nonviolent crimes committed decades ago. Like in the case of Max Londoño, a machinist who's lived in the US since he was 12 years old, who, for a bit of good news this episode, was just released earlier this month after his union coworkers organized and pushed for him to be freed. But as many street vendors have talked about, even small misdemeanors like vending too close to the curb can put someone at risk of immigration consequences. These are all tripwires meant to catch immigrants falling short of a standard that no one, not you or I, or even the people casting judgment themselves, meet all the time. I mean, have you ever gotten a speeding ticket? Have you ever had any interaction with the police? Because as The Guardian reported in April, students have had their visas revoked over minor traffic violations or a mere police investigation, even though charges were never brought or ultimately dropped. What happens to innocent until proven guilty? And it's worth remembering, too, that these detainees rarely get due process. meaning they don't get the chance to make a case before the judge, and that there's an ICE quota of something like 3,000 arrests a day, which incentivizes this kind of indiscriminate targeting of immigrants. They say it's about law and order. They want you to think they're going after really dangerous people. Come on, man, they're going after someone's grandma. And, by the way, as The Atlantic reported, they're actually taking people off of cartel and major human trafficking operations so they can go after Granny. The goal isn't to protect American workers or to keep anyone safe. It's to cast a wide net, snag workers in it, keep people afraid, and drive them to lower their profiles. I've said it before, but it's just so plainly true. That hurts every worker, whether or not you're a citizen. If your coworker or someone on another job site is too afraid to organize for fear of being deported, they're probably going to settle for way more crap than they would otherwise. And that just lowers the floor for everyone. And this rollback of fundamental civil liberties won't stop with them. Shay Freeberg, Secretary-Treasurer of Unite Here 17, which represents hospitality and food service workers in Minnesota, said at a rally in St. Paul that, quote, "It's not a surprise to me that a fascist government starts their crackdown by going after labor first, undocumented workers, and going into work sites. They know the real power in this country is labor, and they're afraid of us," end quote. And far from immigration being merely a divisive union issue, it's actually building the union in many cases. Ryan Andrews, an English teacher and member of the United Teachers of Los Angeles, UTLA, said this, quote, "Anybody who thinks we have to ignore certain issues or avoid certain political conversations in order to grow the base, they don't understand what it means to grow the base," end quote. Andrew said that organizing around immigrant justice has actually pushed some members to engage more closely with their union. He pointed to a student walkout in February protesting Trump's immigration policies. After protesting students were assaulted by two adult men, teachers and students met to discuss a path forward. Teachers circulated a petition demanding that the district denounce the attacks, meet with students and their families when attacked, ensure the safety of students at student-led actions, and provide mental health resources for affected students. Andrews said that almost every coworker signed the petition, even those who felt left behind by their union, because these teachers really care about their students.
How are union members mobilizing right now?
Pretty vigorously in a number of unions. They're organizing against workplace raids, rallying at detention centers to demand the release of their coworkers, and putting together direct actions to help bring in and educate the public. They're protesting outside detention centers like SEIU members and Starbucks baristas did last month outside of the Central Louisiana ICE Processing Center. Starbucks Workers United also offered a Know Your Rights training to all baristas at Starbucks. UTLA, which we just talked about, won an immigrant defense fund back in 2019 by striking then, and they're building on that win now by fighting to protect members who need to take a leave due to their immigration status and pushing the district to invest in legal and mental health support for immigrant students. Federal workers in New York, Chicago, and Seattle held informational pickets last month demanding an end to ICE presence in their workplaces. Right now, more than 100 Teamsters Local 705 members at Mauser Packaging Solutions in Chicago are on strike, and they're being supported by their fellow union members in Los Angeles and Minnesota. Part of what they're striking for is protections for immigrant workers, like protection for intimidation, for instance, which is based on language that their counterparts in Seattle won a couple years back.
Do you get the sense that these actions by union members have helped build relationships and ties with members of the community?
Yeah, I definitely think so. UTLA members have been going door to door sharing Know Your Rights materials on how to respond if ICE shows up. In Chicago, which the Trump administration is especially targeting because it's a sanctuary city, which means there are laws to keep local police from working with ICE agents in carrying out indiscriminate raids, there is a well-established network of labor and community groups that can respond quickly to ICE raids. And they've been organizing demonstrations and rallies even just to provide more safety against ICE.
Thank you, Natascha. Fighting something that feels so scary as ICE in this current moment can feel really overwhelming, and it's really nice to actually hear of some concrete examples people are taking to starting to push back on that power and protect themselves and each other. That's our episode today. Up next, we've got a panel Monday, July 21st on unions who are coordinating their bargaining and aligning contracts. And our next Stewards Workshop on Wednesday, July 23rd is on the topic of building up a stewards network. Our next Secrets of a Successful Organizer series is in September. It's a ways from now, but figured we'd give you a heads up because this is a core labor notes training and we do these every 3 months or so. You can sign up on labornotes.org/events.
We're also planning some in-person Troublemaker schools later this year, including one coming up in September in Durham, North Carolina, and then in Milwaukee, Puget Sound, and Toronto, Canada in October. Again, you can sign up for all our upcoming events on labornotes.org/events. Please rate us or leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. If you're listening to us on Podbean at labornotespodcast.podbean.com, download our episode. The Labor Notes podcast is produced by Daniel Smith, Sindhu Sundar, and myself. Our title music was written and performed by our coworker, Keith Brower Brown. See you next week. Solidarity, y'all.